Hello, welcome to my May reading wrap up in my new vlog style format. We're giving this a go, we're going to see how it works out, and I have finished my first read of May last night, and it was Cruel Illusions by Margie Fuston. I don't know, I listened to the audiobook and I still don't know how to say it, but I listened to this, I finished it last night. It is quite long, that is the main thing I will say about it. My main complaint about it is that it is quite long. So this is a YA book that follows Ava, who is in the foster care system with her brother because both of her parents have unfortunately died and her mum was actually killed by a vampire, and so Ava is out for revenge against vampires. Both of her parents were illusionists and so is Ava, and she comes across this troupe of magicians who are also vampire hunters, and so she decides to attempt to join them by entering a competition to become one of their number, and that's all I will say. But there is an awful lot that goes on in this book, and in fact too much. I thought it was too many plot beats, too many things going on, and not enough time spent on some of the issues. And this is a standalone book, which I appreciated, but it is still too long, I thought, and I felt like I never really fully connected to the characters. Now, my feelings about this book were slightly impacted by the fact that I didn't read it as quickly as I perhaps normally might have done because I was too busy to find time. I went to a couple of PTX or Pentatonics concerts, if you don't know who PTX are, and so that took up a couple of my evenings, and so it took me a little bit longer than it normally would to read a book of this length, which didn't help. But I do still think that overall this could have done with a little bit more editing, in my honest opinion. But anyway, that was my first read in the month of May, and I will see you again once I have read something else. I am back with a new haircut and 3 books to wrap up for you. The first one was a graphic novel which is called Guts and is by Raina Telgemeier, and I don't know what age range it is actually. I mean Storygraph says middle grade, and I'd say that's probably right. It's about a young girl in school who has IBS and is dealing with the fact that IBS impacts upon her life and her ability to do things, and I really enjoyed it. I like reading books with representation of digestive health conditions, so that was enjoyable. Not too much more to say about it than that, and it was a quick read, so if you're interested in the subject matter, give it a go. It doesn't take very long to read. The other 2 books that I've read were books 2 and 3 in the Divine Cities series by Robert Jackson Bennett. I don't have copies of any of these 3 books, which isn't great for getting through my physical TBR, but books 2 and 3 are the last 2 books in the Divine Cities trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett, so I did manage to finish a trilogy, so that's good. Book 2 is City of Blades, and I wasn't hugely keen on this one, to be honest. It felt very middle book syndrome, and it felt kind of like a rehash of the first one. So we're following a different perspective in the second book, so we have a different perspective actually in all 3 of the books, which I didn't actually realise until just before I started book 2. And what I found was that book 2 followed a pretty similar plot arc to book 1, I felt, because we started off with a similar mystery type situation and a similar trying to figure that situation out kind of thing, and then a few big battles and that kind of thing. So it just felt a little bit samey to me, so I didn't love that one, and it made me a little bit kind of skeptical, I guess, going into book 3, which was City of Miracles, and I did enjoy that one more. Now partially that's because the character that we were following in book 3 was one of my favourite characters from book 1, which I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want to spoil who makes it out and who doesn't. But I do enjoy that character, so that helped, I think, with my enjoyment of the 3rd book. But also I felt that the plot was a little bit different. The stakes were, I'd say they were escalated a fair bit, actually. I think they were escalated quite a bit, and actually the ending surprised me, and I don't want to say any more than that because I don't want to give anything away, but I definitely think it's a worthwhile series checking out. I think it's really interesting to read his first trilogy having already finished his second trilogy, because I can definitely see some of the same themes and the same kinds of ideas coming through that he then sort of developed on different ones in his second series. So they're completely different, they're completely separate, they're not interlinked at all, but just some of the concepts and ideas I saw some parallels, so I thought that was interesting. So that's where I'm up to with my reading so far in May, and I will be back once I have finished probably some more books, because I'm just about to go away on holiday, so I might read a few more things before I check in with you again. I was planning on just doing this every time I finished a book, but this one, the graphic novel, I didn't have much to say about, and then I figured I might as well talk about both books in the Divine Cities trilogy together, and the next time will probably be a bulk film as well, because I will be coming back from holiday, so I might have a couple of things to talk to you about. But until then, I'm sorry if there's any reflection of my glasses. It has literally got to the point where if I don't wear them, I can't actually tell if I'm in focus, which makes me feel old, which I'm getting older, but I'm still only in my 30s, come on. But that's what it is. Maybe it's also that my eyes are just a little bit crappy from today from looking at my phone too much. But anyway, I, as predicted, read a couple of books while on holiday, kind of. I have 3 books to talk to you about. One of them I finished on the way to my holiday. Another one I finished on the day, my last day of my holiday, while I was waiting for my flight, and then the third one I started while on the flight on the way home. So I kind of read them on holiday, but also kind of not, you know? So the first one allowed me to finish a series, which was The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This is the second book in the Six Crimson Cranes duology. I don't think it has another name to that, so I can't really tell you what this one is about, but it follows the story that happened in Six Crimson Cranes, which is a retelling, and I can't remember the name of the original fairy tale that it retells, but as you would imagine from the title, it's the one where the princess's brothers get turned into cranes and she has to try and find a way to save them. And this follows, as you can guess from the title, it follows a promise that she made in the first book, and I don't think I liked this quite as much as the first one, but also I read the first one when I was much more into YA fiction, this is YA, but I did enjoy this one, and I think I enjoyed the second half more than the first half of the story, because it just felt a little bit more kind of in tune with the characters' emotions, whereas the first half of the book was very much more plot focused, so it was more, you know, this happened and then this happened and then this happened, whereas the second half was a little bit more in the characters' feelings, which is something that I tend to prefer. So, and I'm glad that I finally got around to reading this, and I enjoyed myself. The next one that I read was X's and O's by Amy Lee. As I mentioned, I read this one on the last day of my holiday. So I was on holiday with Joanna from the channel Joanna Sosa, and her flight was like early afternoon and mine wasn't until the evening, so I had several hours of the day where I kind of just went to the local town for a wander around, and I listened to this while I was doing that, which was fun. So this is a romance, as you can kind of probably tell from the cover here. I think I've read another book by Amy Lee, but now off the top of my head I can't think of what it might have been. Either way, this follows, I'm so bad with character names, Tara and Trevor. So Tara is moving out of her house to move in to her brother-in-law's old room, because her brother-in-law is moving in to her old place because he's marrying her sister, and that's where she used to live with her sister. And she is trying to find love, and she's a blogger, she's a romance reader herself, and so she decides to try to find love by following the second chance romance trope. So she's kind of getting in touch with all of her exes to try and reconnect with them, and her new roommate Trevor is also kind of helping her with this endeavour. You can kind of see where this is going, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cute, it was a fun, easy read. It's adult, but probably just barely. There are a few steamy scenes within the book, but most of it's fairly PG, so it's probably okay for the upper end of YA as well. And then the final book to talk to you about I don't have a copy of, and that is City of Dragons, which is the third book in the Rain Wild Chronicles by Robin Hobb. I am buddy reading this series, or these series, however you want to put it, with Joanna. So we have read, well, I read Farseer separately from her because she'd already read it, and then when I wanted to continue we decided to read the Live Ships series together, and then we read the Tawny Man trilogy together, and now we're reading the Rain Wild Quartet. So we only have one book left now. One book left now to go before we get to the Fitz and the Fool series, which we're both really anxious about. So I can't really tell you too much about this one because it's not only a third book in its own series, but it's also a very late book in the whole realm of the Elderling, so I can't really tell you what it's about. As you can imagine from the title, City of Dragons, there's a city and there are dragons. The characters, some of them, you get dragon perspective, so if that's something you're looking for, then check this one out. I don't think that this is Robin Hobb's strongest series. I think most people agree that this is the weakest in the realm of the Elderlings. It's a little bit more YA in writing style. Not to say that Robin Hobb doesn't still put her characters through it, because she absolutely does, but it's not quite as gritty, I don't think, as some of the others, but you can't just jump into. It's not like if you want to start with Live Ships and then do Farseer, you can kind of do that. You really can't jump to the Rain Wilds series first because you'd just be lost. There's a lot of characters that are overlapped from previous series, so you couldn't do that. I think that this one has been my favourite in this particular series so far, but overall the Rain Wild Chronicles are not my favourite in the realm of the Elderlings. So that is where I am up to with reading this month. It's the 26th now, so I should still manage to fit in a couple more. I have finished 2 series with those books, so the 6 Crimson Cranes duology I finished, and oh no, just one series, is that right? Well no, I already finished the Divine Cities series earlier in the month, didn't I? So I don't think I'll manage to finish another one this month, unfortunately, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I'll see you when I've read my next book, which hopefully shouldn't be too long because my current read, which is Lessons in Chemistry, is not super long. So I shall see you soon, probably with these on again. So once again, I have read 2 things since last we spoke. The first thing was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, which I really enjoyed. So this is historical fiction, which is why I'm surprised by my enjoyment, because I don't usually like historical fiction, but because this isn't World War based, I got on okay with it. I think that's kind of the main reason, but essentially we follow names Elizabeth Zott in the 1950s, and she is a chemist, but because she's a chemist and she's a woman, she is facing a lot of misogyny and sexism just in general in the workplace, but also she is a single, unmarried mother, so she faces a lot of prejudice in her personal life as well, and is struggling to make enough money as a result of all of this to look after her child, who is also very intelligent. And so Elizabeth, becomes a television personality. Essentially, she starts a cooking show with a basis in chemistry. And to be honest, the story is not really what the story is about. The point, or the book, is not really about the story. The book is about Elizabeth facing this sexism and misogyny and fighting for women and her rights and the rights of her daughter and the rights of other women, and encouraging other women to take a stand and see themselves as individuals and more than just what society has said that they are. And I really, really enjoyed it for that. The other book that I read was very much a different tone. It was Squeak by Vera someone. I'll put a picture of it on screen. I read this because I wanted to watch the live show that Roger from Roger Reads did on his channel over the weekend. It's a very, very short book, novella thing. If you have any interest at all in reading balloon animal smut, then maybe give this one a go. It's quite strange. I kind of enjoyed it, but yeah, it's quite odd. It could have done with being longer, to be honest. I think some things were skipped over. The discussion on Roger's channel is much better than anything I'll be able to do here, so if you have read it and you want to hear more about it, head over there. And if you haven't read it and would like to, it is very short. I think it's, I listened to the audiobook, which is available on Scribd. I think that the actual print copy is like 50 pages, so it won't take you very long if you are interested in reading it and then listening to the conversation on Roger's channel. I would recommend. We currently have one more day left in the month. I'm currently reading The Bone Shard, or rereading The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I will finish that. I don't think I'll finish anything else, so I probably won't have much to update you on other than just to confirm whether or not I finished it, because it's a reread, so there won't be a huge amount for me to say that I haven't said previously, but I will check in probably tomorrow at some point. Okay, so my last read for May was indeed The Bone Shard Daughter. I was about to say Emperor then, because that's the one I'm reading now. This was a reread. I read this for the first time maybe around a year or so ago, and I'm really glad that I decided to reread it because I had forgotten a lot of the smaller details which I feel like I needed to continue with the series. So I'm glad I reread it and I really enjoyed it. It's a really interesting and intricate world and magic system, and there's kind of political intrigue, there's a little bit of adventure. It's a little bit on the slow paced side, which is definitely working for me, particularly at the moment. So really glad that I finally got around to rereading this one so that I can now finish out the trilogy, especially because the last book is now out there in the world and ready for me to pick up. And that is it. Those were all of the books that I read in the month of May. Hopefully you've enjoyed this slightly different format of reading wrap up. I've actually found it much easier to film it this way because as of right now it does not feel as overwhelming as usually it would do to wrap up all of these books in one go. So I'm feeling good about this. We'll see how I feel after I've edited it, but that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks, bye!